When I scheduled my chapel, I took 2 steps I think every serious historian does. First, I researched. I watched chapels from the past few years and tried to find recurring trends and characteristics I deemed in keeping with the spirit of this tradition. As a result, the second step was finding what all these faculty chapels had in common. They're all very different messages, different experiences, delivered in very different ways. But the one thing I was able to assert was they all told a story, and they told the story both in a way that we, the audience, got to know them on a more personal level, but also in a way that helped us know and understand the world around us just a little bit better. They shared their stories and the lessons they learned from them. Now, teaching history within the social science department, you would think I would find it easy to tell stories in a social setting because this is part of being a historian. However, writing about oneself and the act of public speaking are 2 things that I find overwhelmingly challenging. But that's the first idea that I want to convey today, overcoming challenges. Growing up, there were 2 things I knew I wanted to do with my life at an early age. The first one seemed pretty obvious when at the age of 3, I received an easel and chalkboard for Christmas. It was that gift that triggered countless hours spent teaching my audience of stuffed animals and teddy bears, the great mysteries of life that a child can know, but no one can understand through the garbled speech of a toddler. The other life calling came a little later. At age 4, I took my first steps onto a softball diamond. My life was changed forever. To say it was love at first sight would be a cliche, but also an understatement. From the first day holding my dad's hand, I watched and witnessed the game I would call home for the next 17 years. It was a game that would drive my ambition and shape the goals and objectives I was motivated to accomplish throughout the many different stages of my early life. Everything happens for a reason. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's not winning that's important, it's how you play the game. If you have ever played any type of sport or participated in any team activity in which you did not dominate the competition, you've probably heard one of these sayings before. Perhaps even in other facets of life, you've heard these mantras, and let's be honest, they're usually said when things do not go exactly according to plan. Journeys are fraught with obstacles and fraught with hardships. Some of the most important parts of a journey are when we struggle and when we overcome in the face of adversity. Some of the hardest moments in my life were when I wasn't able to play the game. Over the course of my many years playing, my career was filled with injuries, which at points could have been career-ending. The normal sprained ankle or broken wrist I'd already taken care of in 7th and 8th grade. A few broken noses and too many concussions to count filled up my high school years. I thought by the time my team made it to the state semifinals my senior year, I was perhaps past most injuries I seemed destined to encounter. Unfortunately, that wouldn't be the case. An extra practice session scheduled the day before the semifinal game, 1 too many fly balls, and a split-second decision to dive resulted in my left hand breaking in 3 places. I was out for the rest of the season, and my team soon followed suit when we lost the game the next day 2-1. Luckily, before my high school career-ending incident, I'd begun the recruitment process and scored multiple scholarship offers, eventually committing to play Division I softball at the College of Holy Cross in Worcester, Mass. That summer, I worked in rehab to be ready for the fall, where I would begin my collegiate career. The first day of practice was the beginning of a 4-year journey that would augment my outlook on life, and where I would learn other life lessons which I still hold on to this very day. The experience of playing softball at this level taught me how important it is to learn how to overcome challenges. And this time in my life brings me to the second message I want to convey today. Never be afraid to change and adjust the trajectory of your life. When you first become a competitive athlete, there's a natural tendency to think about where you'll be in 10 or 15 years after training hard and working to get better at all aspects of the game. So for me, it seemed obvious. I was going to be in the pitching rotation of the United States 2008 and/or 2012 Olympic team. Go big or go home, I thought. We all have to have dreams, and that dream seemed reasonable at the age of 10. It was only when I was dealt the harsh reality that by age 13, my 5 feet 4 inches was no longer growing, so the dream had to be adjusted. My thought process went from Olympics to professional and then Division I. At each point, I had to be able to recommit to a new and different version of my life and the goals I'd set for myself. The lesson ingrained in me through this process was to never be afraid to change the trajectory of life or to veer from the plan. Any person ought to allow themselves the freedom to define and continuously redefine their conception of how life can be fulfilled. Just as important, allow yourself to accept opportunities and say yes to experiences that will challenge your worldview and push you outside your comfort zone. Stephen Sondheim once wrote, "I chose and my world was shaken. So what? The choice may have been mistaken, but the choosing was not." Let me repeat this. I chose and my world was shaken. So what? The choice may have been mistaken, but the choosing was not. I'm not saying quit or break commitments you've made in life, but people, relationships, goals, they may not always end the way you wanted or hoped. Coworkers can become family. Former students can become friends, while others may leave your life without cause or reason or a moment's notice. Each relationship is unique and has purpose and impact, even if it may not be what you conceived or expected. Be willing to adapt, adjust, and allow for things around you to change, all the while finding the positives and letting go of the negatives. Now, you may think that focusing on the injuries as opposed to the highlights of my career seems somewhat negative or pessimistic, but the reality is that these moments stand out as the times that most shaped my character and faith, because these were the times where the game I loved was taken away from me. And these were the times that the only thing I was left in control of was me. Never be afraid to change and adjust the trajectory of your life. But here I reach my final point. The constant that will always be in your life, the one thing you can always control, is you. Over the course of a lifetime, the world around you may develop in ways you may not always expect, like, or understand. But your outlook and perception of these events always remains in your control. My dad coached me for over 15 years of my playing career, driving me to every practice, catching for me at every pitching lesson, coaching every weekend of tournament ball, and then coming to every collegiate home game I ever played. One of the first lessons he ever imparted to me was, you will never regret an extra practice or workout, because there's always someone on another team putting in more time and effort than you. You can always work harder, push further, and strive to accomplish more if you're willing to make the choice to do so. On a larger scale, many times in life, there are happenings and events that remain outside of our control. This realization can sometimes lead to a lot of negative emotions or a sense of overwhelming lack of agency, or even worse, a lack of self-advocacy. You can only control yourself and your actions. So focus on the things that are within your power to change. You have to be your own center and learn to be your own anchor to help overcome the challenges. Have faith and trust in yourself, because you will survive and make it through the hills and valleys of being human. This theme of control can also transcend into how we treat others. Now, I know we can debate about the value of virtue, and Mr. Schultz and I tend to do that on a weekly basis. We constantly question the concept of good and the evaluation of an act as good, and whether or not the motivation of the one committing the act matters or not. But regardless of outside perception or motivation, we can all try and make the choice to, more often than not, be emotionally generous to others. Because again, if we're focusing on the things in life we can truly control, that one thing is yourself. We can find comfort and even inspiration in the agency that no one else can define how we act or react to whatever life may throw at us. We may not always be able to control the external facets of life, but we control how we internalize and react to them. Never regret. We are where we are in life based on the choices we've made and are moving forward based on future decisions that will follow. Do not regret. React in a positive way. So with that idea in mind, I ask y'all to try. Try to make the choice to find positivity around you. Try to be emotionally generous. Try to treat those around you as best you can. And as one of my favorite teachers taught me over the summer, try to remember forgiveness can be a form of self-care and generosity. Be the change you want to see in this world. Find the light around you. And if there isn't any, then ignite it on your own. Do not lose yourself or define yourself by the work that you do, the people you have relationships with, or the things you own, because over time, your world has the potential to be turned upside down. Find faith, hope, and love in life, but also be strong enough to be your own anchor. It's only been in the past year, surrounded by the love and support of this student and adult community, that I have felt this kind of strength and agency, and refused to sink despite the stormy weather and difficulties that have occurred. So remember, the one thing that you can always control is you. As you move forward in your education and face new and unexpected challenges, I urge you to remember and hopefully learn from my story and the lessons I've learned in life thus far. So finally, like we so often do here at LaLu, I want to end with a note of gratitude. I'm humbled and so thankful that I've received the opportunity to become a member of this community. There's a saying that when a door or window closes in life, another is bound to open. Well, my life changed for the better the day I walked through the door of LaPorte, Indiana, and toward the light of Lumiere. Thank you all.